about kids who experience trauma and their social development. School age kids who experience ongoing traumatic events, and that's usually without parental support, might have a hard time at school just due to issues in forming relationships with their teachers and their peers because they behave in ways that keep others away. They might be angry, aggressive, defiant. They might experience strong emotions and behaviors, and they very often will have poor social skills. It's not surprising because we first learn how to interact with others at home. If our models at home don't support the development of positive skills and our brains are hypervigilant to danger, just like soldiers returning from war, it's hard to do well when we're put into a classroom situation that has so many demands and skills needed to succeed. And it's hard to reach out when they might have learned at home that their needs aren't important or they won't be met. One thing that's important to think about is that kids don't automatically know how to calm themselves when they're upset. Kids who have experienced trauma without supportive adults often have real difficulties in calming themselves because they haven't had role models to show them how to calm down and who can support them in feeling safe and calm. Parents and other adults can support kids by coaching them and supporting their success and learning how to calm their brains. Kids who have experienced ongoing trauma in their early years often have negative self-images, and they believe that they deserve what's happened to them. For kids who've experienced trauma in their preschool years without supportive adults, this is a period where they're quite egocentric developmentally, and they think that they're the cause of so many things that happen. And what they learn is they expect others to be mean to them because that's been their experience in the past, and they think that it's their fault that this is happening to them. They believe that the bad things that um, have happened because they're bad and they deserve it. And when kids have experienced ongoing trauma like verbal, physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, domestic violence, substance abuse, parents who are emotionally unavailable due to their own mental health challenges, homelessness, things like this, the brain damage that can happen to their prefrontal cortex impacts their social abilities. The prefrontal cortex, that thinking center, can become underactivated because it's turned off by the amygdala or the fear center in the middle part of our brain, which becomes overactive, making a child feel unsafe and can make them have a hard time calming down and can also disrupt their sleep. And then their emotional centers of the brain and the connections between those different areas of their brain can impact their ability to interact socially with each other or with other kids. And they often have unsatisfying, aggressive, hostile relationships with other kids and also with adults. Then if we look at their ability in school, they also often have difficulty paying attention, inhibiting their impulses, making good decisions, and planning their actions. They might risk becoming a bully or a victim and need support and healing these areas of their brain so they can have more effective relationships, a better self-concept, and they can do better in school. Kids who experience ongoing trauma without adult support are also 2 times more likely to experience depression and 3 times more likely to experience anxiety in their teen years. They're less likely to be able to identify their feelings or to express their feelings in an acceptable manner. Some kids will overreact to situations, and other kids may withdraw when they don't know what to do with what they're experiencing. If a child experiences chaotic, unpredictable caregivers, they might try hard to show that they're in control, even though they're desperately out of control. Kids often have a hard time processing social cues, and of course, that impacts their relationships. They often don't know how to develop positive relationships, how to initiate positive relationships with their peers. They often misinterpret social cues and see somebody as kind of doing something negative toward them when it's really just something that's neutral. And this can result in them overreacting to situations. And then something else about kids who have experienced ongoing trauma is they often have a negative sense of self with poor self-esteem as well as poor self-regulation. Um, Trauma impacts kids in pretty much every area of development, and parents are actually key in supporting kids' recovery from trauma. If your child has experienced trauma and you're sitting here feeling super guilty, I would say stop. This is this is time for us to think about, okay, this is what's happened with my child, and now I know how important this is, and I'm going to be working to make sure that I can support my child's positive development. I know that parents are always doing their very best to support their kids, and sometimes we just don't know what we should be doing to support their development. But with all the recent brain science that we have, we know a lot more about what is and is not effective. And, you know, beginning to learn that and implement it can just turn things around for a child. The earlier we do it, the better. And the great thing about kids' brains is they're still developing and we can change them. Um, you know, in the school age years, we can actually change throughout our entire lives. That's the most amazing thing, is that our brains are flexible throughout our lives. It just gets a lot harder to make the change to our brains as we get older. So it's a lot easier to do it as early as possible.